So you've got to uni, it's going great, but there's this worry at the back of your mind going, but what if I fail? Okay, let me talk you through that. Hello everyone, welcome to The Attic. My name's Mark Jago. I'm a philosophy professor in the UK. I'm doing a series of videos trying to answer the kind of questions that new university students ask their tutors all the time. In this video, I'm going to focus specifically on this nagging worry that a lot of students have about what happens if I mess up? What happens if I fail? So if that sounds good to you, do me a favor, hit thumbs up on this video. That helps more students find this information on YouTube. And if you're liking this stuff, why not subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon to get updates. So what I'm going to do in this video is take you through kind of what it takes for a piece of work, an assignment or whatever to fail, and what would happen if you do one of those. What happens if one of your piece of work fails? But the main thing I want to get across to you, first up, right at the start, is that failing on academic grounds, because your work isn't good enough, that's actually really, really rare. Normally, if somebody fails, it's because something else is going on. So I'm going to talk you through that as well. Okay, so first up, let me just run you through how the marks work at most universities in the UK and what it would take to fail and kind of the criteria that we would look at for saying, yeah, actually this essay is gonna fail. You'll probably be surprised. So at most UK universities, we work on a percentage system. So in theory, you're going from 0 to 100, and the pass mark for undergraduates is usually 40%. And in some subjects, yeah, they go all the way from 0 up to 100. So if it's like a multiple choice quiz with 100 questions and you get 40 or more right, you would pass. However, in essay-based subjects, so we're thinking about arts and humanities primarily, but also some other things like psychology based on essays, the marking is a little bit different. The average mark for an essay is probably going to be somewhere around 60%, something like that. And most of the marks, nearly all of the marks, fall within this band of that average. So most marks are probably falling between 50% and 75%. But that's what I see at my university, and it's what I saw when I worked at other universities, and when I've been the external examiner at other UK universities, that's pretty much what I've seen. So I kind of think pretty reasonably that that is what you're going to get at most UK universities. So nearly all marks for nearly all essays are going to fall somewhere between 50, that's 2, and 75, so that'll be in the middle of a first. So what that means is that nearly everybody is 10 percentage points above the pass mark, 40, okay? Not many people get an essay in the 40s, and even fewer get below a 40. So failing in an essay, in an exam, for an essay-based subject is actually pretty rare, just looking at the academic quality of the work. That said, there are some other reasons that your mark might come down just beyond the academic quality of it. I'll get onto that in a little bit. Let's first just talk about what it would take for an essay to get that kind of low mark, that below 40 fail mark, just on academic grounds. So your university, your department or your school or whatever will probably have a marking criteria for essays. And I actually suggest you ask to see that. They'll probably show you that early on in the term. I think most people probably ignore it, but it's actually really good to look at because it can help reassure you that unless you do a really bad job, your essay isn't going to fail. So when I look at mine in my department, pretty much to fail, to get less than 40, an essay would have to be way too short. So if we're asking for an essay of 1,500 words and it was like 500 words, like a third of the length, yeah, that might be failing. It would have to be way off topic. I don't just mean like failing to answer the question properly. I mean like it's not really addressing the question or the neighborhood of the question at all. And there's this general sense that, it's kind of taking the piss. Like the answer you've written, it's not really trying to be a serious attempt at an essay at all. Probably you'd have to do maybe all of these things or any two of them in order to really fail. So really, for a failing essay, we're talking about something that's super short, it doesn't address the question, and it kind of looks a bit like a joke. So, in some ways you have to try quite hard to really fail on academic grounds in an essay. Now, in saying this, I'm not saying writing essays is easy. It's not. I've done a whole series on essay writing, and getting the high marks, that's actually really hard. Lots of students don't get the grades they want. They're getting like somewhere in the 50s. That's a 2-2. That's probably not where most students want to be. But genuinely to fail to get lower than 40, that's not the same as just doing a bad job and getting a 50. So look, if you're coming up to your first assessment and you're thinking, oh, I don't know if I'm good enough for this, everyone else around me seems to be so smart, I'm worried about failing, I would just say to you, just do your best not to worry about that. Chances are, if you put a bit of effort in it, you are not going to fail. You might not get exactly the mark you want first time up. You might have to put more work into your presentation, the argument, your structure. I've talked about all these topics in other videos, so go and have a look at that if you want. What I'm saying is you're probably, if you put the effort in, not going to fail and, kind of get penalties for failing, the repercussions of that. That's probably not going to be an issue for you. Now, that said, there are other reasons why an essay might fail, kind of not just based on the quality of what you write in the essay or the exam or whatever, okay? The two big ones are you hand it in late. So most universities will have some kind of penalty for handing things in late. At my university, 5 percentage points get knocked off for each working day that the essay is handed in late. So if you write a pretty good quality essay and you get a 60, kind of low 60% quality essay, but you hand it in a week late, so it's 25% off, that's going to fail, okay? So you wrote a good essay, but you handed it in late and it hasn't passed, and then you got all those problems. The other way in which it can fail is you just don't write an essay at all. You just don't hand something in, you got an exam, you don't turn up for it, and you get 0. Oh, and I guess a third way in which you might fail is if you do something a bit naughty, you do some plagiarism in the essay, kind of cheating. I'm going to talk about all that in another video in this series. Okay, so I'll get on to that then. So these are the main ways in which you can fail. So chances are, if I see one of my students, one of my tutees, and they've got a fail mark, it's lower than 40, I'm kind of thinking, okay, did they hand it in late? Did they kind of not hand it in at all? Was there a problem there to do with plagiarism? Now look, in all of these cases, chances are that's an indication that something else is going on. Okay, so if somebody handed in an essay like a week late, kind of why is that? What's going on there? If they didn't hand in an essay at all, what's going on there? So maybe there was a really harmless reason for that, like, it's the first deadline that's come up for that student and they kind of just didn't get their act together, or they didn't know about the deadline, or they got their dates confused, or whatever, okay? And in that case, you just say, yeah, silly mistake, don't make that mistake next time. And, everybody makes some big mistake, maybe a couple of big mistakes throughout their time at uni. And in some ways, it's kind of better to make them at the start when it doesn't matter so much than making them in the third year when it really matters. You kind of miss an exam, you miss an essay. Yeah, it happens in the first year, no problem. If you do that in your finals, kind of big problems. So in some ways, it's better to get these things out the way early on. But there might be something more going on there, right? So if I talk to a tutee and I say, well, why did you hand this in a week late? And they said, I just couldn't get it written in time. Okay, so yeah, maybe it's not a problem because maybe you learn you just have to start earlier and the next essay you start earlier and it's not a problem. But if the next one is late as well, then we have to start thinking, okay, so what's going on there? Why is it that you're always needing more time to write this essay? Is it that you just need to start earlier? Or is it that whenever you start, you kind of procrastinate to the point where you just can't get the damn thing written? Either way, we need to kind of have a chat and see if we can help you to deal with that. Or maybe there's something else going on, right? So maybe whenever you've got a deadline looming, your mental health takes a turn for the worse, and for whatever reason, then you just can't get that essay in, or you think it's just not going to be good enough, so you don't submit it, or whatever. This stuff happens to an awful lot of people. And, in that case, I'm not so much thinking about your essay and your mark, although, that matters too, but I'm worried about your mental health, right? Because kind of that's more important than getting an essay mark. You can always do another essay, but if your mental health is affected, that's not something that we can fix just like that. There might be some underlying reasons. So if this stuff is happening to you, you need to talk to your tutor. You need to get in touch with them and say, I'm kind of having a bit of trouble here. I've got marks that aren't the marks I want, or I got this one late, or I got a fail for this one because I just couldn't hand it in. Can we talk about it? As a tutor with my tutees, I will be looking at the marks they're getting and kind of trying to have those conversations, not like blaming you for getting a low mark or whatever, but saying like, are you happy with your marks? Is anything going on here that I can help with? And, sometimes I can help. It's just a chat and we can talk it through and that helps. Sometimes it's stuff I can't help with. Like if it's stuff to do with your mental health taking a bad turn, I can't really fix that for you, but I might be able to put you in touch with somebody who can help to talk that through, to go through some processes and try and sort that out. So, one way or another, I think if stuff is not going the way you want, it's really important you get in touch with your personal tutor. Okay, the point there was, if you've got an essay that's failing, chances are there is some underlying reason that's not to do with your quality as a writer of essays, as a student. It's probably got some underlying cause, and the important thing is that we address that rather than, worrying just about what marks you're getting. Sort out the underlying issue, and hopefully the marks sort themselves out. Okay, so what actually happens if you fail? What is the kind of consequences of having a piece of work that fails? Well, it kind of depends what year you're in. If you're in the third year and that's your finals and you fail something, that could impact on your final degree result. So we're kind of trying to nip this in the bud before we get to that point. If it's the first year, you fail something, chances are if it's a one-off, it's not going to matter. Okay, so there's two bits of information that's relevant here. I'm thinking specifically about the rules at my university, so I can't speak to all universities, but my understanding is that most UK universities work on a kind of similar system. So we're talking about modular degrees where you're doing lots of pieces of assessment, lots of different modules. If one of them fails, chances are it's not a problem. You don't have to pass everything to get through to the second year. Okay, so suppose you're in your first year and you don't pass one essay or you don't pass one module, it's actually not going to be a problem. If you fail on a couple of modules, then yeah, it might be more of an issue, but it's not a huge issue. What would happen in that case? Let's suppose you fail on 3 modules and we say, look, you could fail any one of them and progress to the second year, but not 3 of them, not 3 out of 12 for the year. What you would have to do there probably is do some resits in the summer. Okay, so there's always these kind of backup things, like you have exams in, say, January and May, June. If something goes wrong there and we can't kind of just make adjustments elsewhere and we say, okay, I think you have to do some resits to pass those pieces of the assessment, you get a chance to do them in the summer. So it's a kind of a bit of an issue for you, but it's not a real problem. You shouldn't really be worried about that when you're kind of going about your work like, oh, am I going to fail? If I fail, it's all gone wrong. It's not really like that at all. Every year, good students have issues. Good students do resits. It's not a sign of you as an individual failing. What it means is if you have to do resits in the summer is kind of something came up in your life. Mental health stuff, personal stuff, or I don't know, you went on a big binge or something and couldn't do these bits. Like, this stuff happens. And, basically it's not going to be a problem. Or rather, I guess I should say, it doesn't have to be a problem because we can fix it, we can sort it out, you can do your summer resits and then everything's fine. The only instance, I think, when this stuff really is a problem is when there is some underlying issue, like I talked about earlier, that is causing this stuff to happen. Okay, so if you keep getting marks that you don't want, if you keep getting like failed essays because there is some kind of serious issue you're having, then obviously we have to look at that and address it. But even then, there is lots of stuff we can do to try and help you out to kind of move around assessments, or even think about, resitting some stuff, resitting the term or the year. So, it's pretty rare for stuff to get this serious. So the reason I'm telling you about it is to say, basically, it's probably not going to happen to you, but even if it does, you don't have to panic because we can sort it all out. So the message I'm trying to get across here is kind of the same as in all of the previous videos in this series. Whatever is going on, kind of don't panic. Do your best, try hard, but if it doesn't go perfectly, don't worry. Talk to us, talk to your personal tutor. Chances are we can sort stuff out. So I'm going to be continuing this series of trying to answer questions that new students ask. In the next video, I'm going to be focusing on something a little bit different, thinking about this issue of okay, so you've done a few lectures, you kind of get a grip of what's going on at university, but you're still thinking, how am I actually meant to learn stuff? How do I go from hearing and reading all this stuff to actually learning it? What's the process of learning that I should be going through? So that's what I'm going to be talking about next time. If that sounds good to you, why don't you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to get notifications for when I upload that. If you've enjoyed this one, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up. That really helps me out. Thank you so much for watching this far, and I hope to see you back next time.